Great. So we'll start from, a question that everybody wants to know about, particularly, because we've got a few existing franchisees and prospective franchisees and few professionals from the beauty industry, that how has COVID changed the customer expectations from Lakme Salon, and what challenges you see, for the outlets, and how do you see your franchise outlets, your partners to adapt those changes that you foresee?
Okay. So I'd like to step back a little, if you allow, right? So I think because, what happens is, I think of late, everybody is wearing these glasses in the morning, which, has COVID written all over it. And then we start viewing the world through the COVID glasses, right? And we must understand that, of course, it's a tectonic shift, right? It's a big shift. It's changed people's habits. It will change lifestyles. Like someone has said, it takes 21 days to change a habit, and it takes 90 days to change a lifestyle. By the look of it, we will have changed and acquired some new habits, lost some old ones. We would have changed or modified our lifestyle a little bit, right? And that's going to happen across various things. But let's look at the beauty industry, especially the beauty services industry, right? Why was it growing?
You can probably throw some light on the changes that has happened so far in salon industry and what consumers would be expecting now.
I think it's a salon. I think Pushkaraj is a great, leader, and he's done a great work in Lakme, and we'll wait for him to rejoin. And till the time, I can give my 2 cents, so to say, on the whole industry. One, I think this is an industry which would not go. I mean, this is a particular virus is such that it reflects on a lot of discourages you on human touch and things like that. But if you look at the industry and look at the stability of this business model and so on and so forth, the salons is not going. It's essential service. I mean, if this would not have been infectious in that sense, we would have been still going to salons as we were going to departmental stores or supermarkets or pharmacies and things like that. So I personally feel that this business model is very, very robust. They would have every salon, especially chain owner and responsible company like Lakme, would create what I call 2-level strategy. One is what I call immediate strategy, which means safety of their own people, safety of the customers they're dealing with, which would last till the time the virus lasts. And they would. I'm sure that they're a responsible company. They're obviously Unilever brand, so they would do whatever best can be done to the last core. So I think it would bring in a lot of reassurance to customers who are walking and taking those services. So that's what would happen on a short-term basis. On a long-term basis, I feel that they've come a long way of this whole industry, and I know that moving from a lower ticket value, just only woman-centric salon to a now very unisex kind of salon, the whole structure as a business model has changed. So I think both by Lakme and all the other players also, I think in long term, I don't see any challenge in the industry, rather than to thrive now, because the industry is always faced the big challenge coming from the unorganized part of it. And I'll give some perspective. In India, there are about 1 million salons, and these million salons, and the only branded, which put together with the 6 top players, is only about 4,000 odd, including even if I take Javed Habib's large number value retail salons and so on and so forth. So there is 1 million barber shops and unorganized beauty parlors, so to say, available in this country. So what is going to happen now, which I think is a bigger opportunity for branded operators, is that this would shift from these unorganized mom and pop operators to more branded, because branded would bring better assurance of quality, hygiene, safety, a lot of other things. So I personally feel this is exciting time. This is rather times of consolidation, times of shift, consumer shift, which would happen. And this shift would come for various reasons. The smaller salons lack everything. They lack good talent. They lack infrastructure, because now even if you want to do social distancing, you need to have sizes. These are my micro salons and micro parlors, which don't have that capability. So I think the consumer would find a big opportunity to shift from these unorganized to entire. So I see now a hyper growth coming for these branded chains, because these branded chains at all levels, at a value level, at a mid level, which is Lakme, and even a luxury level. Luxury, while we don't have many brands in India, but I think at all 3 levels, which would happen, a big shift would happen. And so overall, I think for potential entrepreneurs or potential franchisee, I see this is a great opportunity, and I I always believed that this business model was so salon business is actually very scientific. It's a business which is which over the time has built its own strong science. And when I say science, which means that everything works on certain amount of predictability, which you can bring in from the throughput on chairs. So it's all about chair turnover. So the model is very simple. In a typical full service salon, you have two sections. One is a hair section, which you have chairs, and where there has to be a rotation of those chairs. Typically, a good size salon would have 8 to 10 stations, and each station would rotate max about 6 times. So fundamentally, you can do your calculation how many people you would be able to turn around, what kind of throughput you will get on hair. And then you normally would have 2 beauty rooms, which is what I call the 80-20 principle of salon business, which means that this 80% of cycle would give you 20% of profitability, not so much in the same ratio, but this 20% of business gives you 80% profitability. So a lot of people are not able to crack the beauty side. And beauty side or even hair color side and things like that, they are high margin products. And companies like Lakme or companies which are full service salon companies like Toni & Guy, Gitanjali, Lux, and all these companies have actually mastered that part of it. And they have very strong subscriber base, which would spend a certain amount of wallet share month on month on these. I think where a woman would come averagely in India, while it looks like the woman is using salons more, actually answer is no. Average woman would use a salon only once in a 40 days. So over to you, Ashita.
Yeah, so Pushkaraj, you were answering my question. So can we start from there? Yeah. Okay.
So I was just talking about the fundamentals which are driving the growth, and what out of those fundamentals are likely to change in the sort of here today as well as here to stay, right? So the need to look good, I think it might be a little up or down in the here today, but I'm sure it will come back very strongly in the here to stay, right? The number of social occasions, and by social occasions, they are changing, right? So now this, for example, is a social occasion. I'm not meeting anybody physically, but it has become in the new normal, or, in the here to stay, this will be a social occasion, right? Or clicking pictures. Right now, I can see a lot of my friends posting pictures from the past, but I'm sure, they'll run dry of those, and soon you'll start seeing new pictures coming in, right? So I think social occasions, again, the here to stay will keep going up as they have, gone up. Even in the social distancing world, they'll take a new definition, but they will be there, right? And if you look at exposure, it's only going up, right? So even in this time, the amount of information that is available as well as there is demand for is disproportionately high, right? At Lakme, we have done, our consumers have wanted us to keep engaged with them. So we've done lots of DIYs. We started this new format called Beauty from Home, which we do every Tuesday and Friday, where our national creative directors come in and answer questions. They give some beauty hacks, right? We've done some work with TG, where we actually showed people how to look different for every Zoom call with just, small flicks in hairstyle, right? So I think the need stays. The route to that, to, sort of satisfying that need might be slightly different, right? And, as nimble-footed brand and business owners, we should be very close to consumers and watch that and sort of respond to the times very quickly, right? Coming to the last attribute, which is discretionary income, again, I think there might be some, sort of pressure on discretionary income in the short term, right? But after some point in time, the need to look good will take over, and you will start seeing people, spending time and money in consuming beauty and beauty services, right? In fact, in economics, there's a theory called the lipstick effect, which means that, when times are tough, people actually spend in the small indulgences, right? And, products like lipsticks and, cosmetics, which are small indulgences, actually sort of take off contrary to what you would expect it to be, right? So that's one part. The second part is, why do we even franchise, right? We franchise not because we are short of capital, right? We are owned by Unilever, and capital has never really been a constraint here. But when we franchise for entrepreneurship, right? Our franchisee partners, and I can see Gaurav nodding vigorously because, Gaurav, you've kind of crusaded this for the last 20 years, and, everyone in the industry owes this to you. But we franchise to bring a certain spirit of entrepreneurship, a certain way of motivating, engaging, and building the team. And then, of course, building the brand as per guidelines and creating a very standard, consistent experience where consumers are delighted, right? And in fact, when we look for our franchisees at Lakmé, the first two things that we look for is ability to manage and motivate a team. And second, the ability to execute processes with discipline. Capital has never really been a big constraint, right? For people who have A and B, C has not really been the problem, because typically these people have, a professional qualification, and under their belt, or they have, some professional experience under their belt, or they're born into families which are, having some kind of tradition with business and entrepreneurship, right? Now, if I look at that, the need to be an entrepreneur, the need to, build an enterprise and scale it up and take care of your teams and make them successful is also there. So both on the demand and the supply side, I think in the year today, things might be different, but in the year to stay, things will be back to maybe not the first normal, but a new normal. And that will mean that, we'll do services in a different environment, consumers will interact differently, every touch really counts, premium will be placed on expertise, and we should be ready to sort of, go there.
So I think very well said. And we were talking just because there was in between, and I was saying that for a branded salon and credible organization like you, this is probably a opportunity in adversity. What is significantly going to happen is that the market would shift, the consumer would shift to more credible brands which can bring in what I always say, warmth and competence. Warmth comes from the localization of the business model, which we have done from a franchisee effect. And I know the times that Banga was a chair of a Unilever, and he was all about brand extensions and how you can bring in another entrepreneur who can bring the last mile connect with the consumer. And I think it was his vision.
Absolutely.
We started looking at opportunities and expecting that, and we also have an opportunity to work. But this warmth is very important, and whenever you were interacting on a local salon, you look interacting with somebody who's local, speaks your language. A lot of women entrepreneurs who even look after their salons like their own home. And in Yum, we used to say in Yum restaurants, there is a saying that if you want to give somebody a franchise, you go and sleep with his home. If you're not able to look after his home well, you will never look after your business well. So all of these women entrepreneurs they look after their salons like their own home, so they bring a lot of warmth, and every guest is special guest to them. And then competence comes from a large process-driven company like yours, which has seen generations and generations of cultures, the different adversities, different kind of situations, which I think it's a great combination. And this combination would then shift a lot of consumers, which would not now depend and rely on these mom and pop kind of an operators, because they don't have that competence part of it. And they also lack infrastructure. And I think there would be a larger demand, we say that in any change cycle, three things change. And Ashita would talk about more on that, but I think product, processes, and priorities of consumer. So I feel that the processes, while the smaller companies, the smaller mom and pop don't have it, so they don't even have ability to change, but it's very quick for companies like yours to adapt and bring change cycles very, very quickly. And priorities also, I think it will be reflective towards shift, this time towards more branded and more competent players. And as a product side, I think it's a product which I think is stayed with us for generations. And I joke with everybody on salon that this is one opportunity which grows half an inch every month. So you don't do anything about it; it just grows for you, right? So it's an opportunity which would find its own growth cycle. So you don't have to work too hard on that. And I'm sure you're looking for a haircut right now, and I am losing more hair, so I also need to do something about it. But so we have some opportunities being created every single day in every home, and as the markets open up, I think you'll find. So over to you, Ashita, and your next questions. I think Ashita has lined up a lot of questions. I don't want to disturb her in my talk.
No, it was a good insight. I mean, I'm right now loving my conversation in terms of having the lipstick economy and half an inch every month. So these 2 points are well taken. So, as you know that we normally, emphasize a lot on entrepreneurs, as Pushkarji also said that. So how do you it's an old brand, right? I mean, it's a 38-year-old brand, and you've got entrepreneurs, what, 150 of them. What is, there that you kind of bind them together? So it's like what encourages you in a franchise relationship? Because it's like I understand it's like an entrepreneur to entrepreneur mindset, or a business owner to a business owner mindset. How do you, I'm sure there would be, times when you disagree to agree on certain things. So how do you look at it? How do you manage that?
I think it's an excellent question, and I think the thrill of of working with a brand like Lakme, especially I'm speaking here personally, is the fantastic opportunity that you get to work with those 250 entrepreneurs who want to subscribe to a larger brand philosophy, but they also want to push things a little ahead of what we think of, and that is really the beauty of it, right? First, I'll give you a little context, right? Our entrepreneur partners or our franchisee partners actually are professionals. They could have been in corporate jobs, or they could have been, really successful professionals in their chosen stream. So many of them, they are chartered accountants, they are doctors, they are people who have, sort of reached a certain stage in their career, IT services professionals of, pretty high seniority, financial services professionals, HR professionals. So a lot of them actually come with some professional expertise and some professional background or training at least, right? And we have a pretty stringent screening process because we've understood that, two things are critical, and I'm repeating what I said earlier. One is the ability and the intent to manage, motivate your team. You have to believe that those are the people who will earn you your reputation, your money, and all of that, right? So I can't cut hair, right? Otherwise I would have looked a little better than what I'm looking right now. But I owe it to, Anil in our Powai salon, or I owe it to, Gajendra in our Delhi salon to really, put things together for our consumers, and therefore sort of, we have a business proposition around it. And franchisee partners who respect their team and, engage them, motivate them, and look at progress through their eyes, I think are critical for success in this. The second one is that, we live in a jugaad country, but it is important when you have to build a brand which is consumer facing and, has sort of the trust and the heritage of a brand like Lakme, that all those processes and protocols that we have are implemented to the T, right? So you need to have that attitude of understanding what the SOP is and wanting to execute it with discipline. Some of our better partners actually execute better than the person who has written the SOP. And then we actually go and look at how they've executed it and rewrite that SOP and come out with a version 2, right? And I'm really proud to even say something like this, that, we learn from our partners and put best practices of partners together also in something, right? We've also designed a lot of our processes for this to be a franchisee-driven, franchisee-run organization, right? So we have a scorecard. On the scorecard, the top performers who are high on process as well as high on performance, they of course have some recognition and monetary awards linked to it, but they form a body that is called the Franchisee Advisory Council. And a lot of our strategy and a lot of our tactics are born in discussions with the Franchisee Advisory Council. For example, our whole foray into academies and the partnership with that we will go into an ecosystem type of a model. And then we of course went in and then we spoke to the AppTech team and we set that whole thing up. Came out of a discussion in the Franchisee Advisory Council where we said we need to create a captive pipeline of talent and raise standards of education, right? So I'm just giving you something as strategic as that to something like now post-COVID we have put a very stringent process of safety protocols. So we looked at what international brands were doing, we looked at what product brands had recommended, we spoke to doctors, and then we spoke to the Unilever medical team, and then we put together 55 steps in the customer journey. And our advisory council has reviewed, monitored, and given us suggestions on strengthening that. So something at a strategic level, like a Lakme Academy powered by AppTech, to something at a tactical level on, should we put the threading roll inside a jar so that it is also free of all contamination and there is a hole from which the thread comes. I'm just telling you at a helicopter view to the ants view. We work very closely with that advisory council, and all of them have earned those spots on their council. This council changes every year. These are people who are green boxed on performance and process every year, and we take what they say very seriously, right? Second, I think and now I'm just speaking specifically about times like these, right? This is the time to put community, team, country, and other people before your self-interest, right? And when we say that, it is important for us to put the interest of our partners, and within that, the smaller partners, and really help them in this time, right? So we've extended liquidity support to all partners, but we have extended loans actually to some partners who are the smaller ones, and we felt they've just started out, so they need that support, right? And the good thing is that our larger partners actually have respected that, right? You would normally expect, and we were wondering whether the larger partners will come back and say that you're doing everything for the smaller ones, but they actually said yes, they need that support, so please route it to them. When I need it, I hope that you will also have something if this lockdown continues for longer, and we are thinking about how to put those in place for places which haven't opened as of now. But that is important, right? So that spirit of partnership, I think, is quite critical, right? I had one of my business partners tell me he had in fact signed out of a pretty lucrative corporate job and taken over a Lakme salon only about 6-7 months back. And when I asked him, what do you think about the timing? He said that, you have to be prepared for it. You can't want the thrills of entrepreneurship and then the cushion that an employee enjoys, right? And I think it's quite insightful, and I think it means a lot that someone who has come into our fold recognizes this and understands, right? So that's really what I think entrepreneurship means and brings to the table. And in some way, we do not measure success in return on capital employed or return on investment. But in this business, you have to measure this on return on entrepreneurship, right? And entrepreneurship is a combination of, especially for our business, the involvement that you bring in, the ability to help your people grow, and then of course, how do you operate the hard sort of P&L and operational metrics of your business, right? So ROE in our business actually becomes return on entrepreneurship, and the more entrepreneurial our partner is, we just see them successful all across, and all their metrics, their consumer metrics look good. Their attrition is like sub 5%. The profitability, they break even in like less than a year, and obviously they just keep reaping profits as they go. But is that the norm? No, right? You have to work towards that and get it there.
Yeah, so I would especially congratulate you, Pushpal, because we've been seeing the journey of Lakme, and we've seen days which were early days, and how the business model was coming out of a large corporation like Unilever, where I always say that, so being a product company, shift on a service company, and these micro partners which working with this overwhelming large company, so it was a challenging times at that time. I know I used to talk to a lot of franchisees, and they used to tell me that, dealing with Unilever was very different. And now I see, and I can compliment you, because I know a lot of franchisees of yours, and they say that this is a new company in between Unilever. So the Lakme salon business is very entrepreneurial driven enterprise, which is sensitive on the relationships, sensitive on the franchisee performances, sensitive on terms of their requirement, and so on and so forth. So it's a big change, and it is not easy. While you must have said that, but I know a lot of enterprises, a lot of large companies were never able to get it, because they will never be able to get the mindset of running and working with entrepreneurs. So because franchising is all about one managing director managing a lot of managing directors. So it's an owner managing owners. So it's a different psyche, and that psyche is not very easy to get in. So all compliments to you, what you and your team has achieved, and you are absolutely right. All the learnings, all great ideas in any franchise organization has always come from the franchisee, because they are the ones who are dealing with consumers. They know what is shifting, how it is changing, and any best practices they have that can be brought into the company. Asha, over to you.
Yeah, very rightly said. And I love that point, return on entrepreneurship. This ROE is something which is really interesting. So, Pushkraj, connecting to this only, there are a couple of people, Rahul, Iftiar, and a couple of more are asking, do you see conversion franchising happening now? Because there'll be more expectations from consumers and more trust on branded salons. So what's your take on that? That's a, multiple time asked question, so I thought I'll ask you right now.
So, strangely, we had a very important conversion, and I think it's more symbolic than just the number of conversions. We had someone who was a very successful manager in one of our franchisee salons, right? And he was somebody who would walk away with all the awards and everything. And this is in West India. This guy actually went out and he, in partnership with somebody, set up his own salon, right? He ran them for 2 years. And in December, he came to us. Actually, December he launched. So he came to us sometime in October saying that, I am missing running a Lakme salon. And then he explained to us how consumers, and this is all pre-COVID, right? So this is an underlying trend. COVID might accelerate it. That's the point I want to make. So he said, I can see that consumers now are more discerning. They are a lot more evolved, and their expectations are high. And as an individual entrepreneur, while I put in a lot of personality into the game and try and put all the details together, but the kind of trends that I would get from Lakme, the support I would get on products, the kind of scrutiny and audits and all the help that's assisted in bringing operations on track, I'm missing that. And he came in and he actually converted both his salons to Lakme salons. Right? This happened just in December, right? And that trend, if you ask me, will accelerate, right? Because if you were to ask consumers earlier how they decide which salon they should go to and stay loyal with, I think something like safety and trust, because it is table stakes, it would come at a number 4, right? Today that comes at it's day 0, right? It's not even number 1, it's day 0, right? And safety and brand I trust on the hierarchy of needs now has moved to the very top spot, and therefore brands which not just are, it's not about age, right? But which have heritage, expertise, and have demonstrated 2 things. 1, that they can be trusted through all these years. And 2, they have a lot more process. It's not driven by one person, or it's not, driven by chance. They have a lot more process, infrastructure, and investments in that, which ensure that, they will sort of continue to execute with that level of precision, will be trusted by consumers. Before being trusted by consumers, I think in this business, it's also important that this will be seen as a very strong employer brand, right? Our experts would also prefer to work in an environment which they can trust, right? And I think over the 40 years journey that Lakme salons have undergone, first with the Tatas and then with Unilever, both are parent groups which put human values and trust with consumers and with employees above everything else, right? Unilever has a multi-stakeholder model which ensures that, whether it's employees, the communities that we operate in, supplier partners, vendor partners, and of course consumers and, the world at large is a stakeholder in that business. And we have to grow by growing or delivering to all of them, right? To Gaurav, your point, I think we all stand tall on shoulders of giants before us, right? And I think the people, so I joined this business in 2012 and it's been exciting since then. We crossed 200 salons, 300 salons, 400 salons. This March we were to get to 500, and now this Sunday we reopened 220 salons, right? So it's all sort of a game. And I was actually saying that we had opened 200 salons. It took us about 5 years to open from 100 to 200, and this time we've done that in the space of 4 days. So you can sort of just look at the brighter side of things and see how fast paced you get a chance to sort of operate in. But I think the team has always been, at any point in time, really conscious about quality, really conscious about consumers, and building a good value proposition for the experts who work here, right? Training has always been placed at a premium, even through this lockdown. So when the lockdown happened, we split into 3 teams. One team looked at team engagement, one team looked at business continuity, and one team looked at the safe journey and the new normal that we had to put in, right? And this all happened between the 10th of March to the 17th of March. We were not very sure how long the lockdown will go, but we were prepared with a training calendar, 4 hours a day across all different trainings, modules, technical refreshers, high level of expertise for the senior experts, managerial competency skills, external exposure, all of that. And we had our training team had put in that calendar, and we were executing that with clockwork precision, right? Because we wanted to use this time to not just strengthen our engagement with the team, but also make them a lot more capable when we are ready to open, right? Because you don't want to sort of lose touch with ground reality and then open, 60 days later. At that time, we thought it was going to be 30 days later. But and then get lost, right? Or then sort of not live up to consumer standards. So I think that the team's been very responsive to the changing environment, whether it's the demanding consumer, whether it's a new regulatory environment, or whether it is COVID. We've just been very close to consumer and the market, and therefore we've been able to respond, touchwood, fast so far.
Yeah, oh, that's great. That's great to know. And extended to this question only, do you see consolidation happening in the market for beauty and wellness at large? Because if these are the things which are happening and the demand would increase, or if consumer of course is more exposed than what he is earlier, but now he's become more conscious as well. So do you see that happening faster than ever?
See, I can't call it really consolidation because, if you look at our business, right, we have like, let's say 60 lakh outlets. We have got 60 lakh outlets across the length and breadth of India. And amongst the organized players, the numbers would be like really small, right? The number of outlets that fit with what you can call organized, and let's call it, 5 outlets plus, would be really small. So, when you talk about a different industry structure where there are 10 players and then it sort of comes down to 3, you can sort of label that consolidation. I do see talent wanting to work with a larger and well-governed and a more stable brand. I do see consumers wanting to move to a more trusted environment and a more expertise-driven environment. And therefore, if there is that kind of move at the supply side and the demand side, there will be some form of reorganization, right? I wouldn't take the liberty of calling that consolidation. It's not like, a significant shift. Having said that, I will also say that I'm really, really amazed and very positively surprised by how seriously the entire industry has taken safety, right? So even, small barber shops and small beauty parlors have certainly, done their bit. The Beauty and Wellness Sector Skills Councils have formulated guidelines. Industry players, so including, people like Lakme and, other leading chains, have formulated a simple version of those guidelines, and that's version 2. And they are putting their resources in training people from smaller salons and smaller beauty parlors so that, as an industry, we raise the standards of safety and trust from the consumer, right? So I see, other initiatives where, we're coming together as an industry to raise the standards and raise the bar for the industry. And I think that is a huge welcome shift. And that really shows that in adversity, people come together and think community and think country before self. So I think a play on both of these things will happen. There will be some shifts because supply and demand are moving. Yes, our conversion franchisees are actually very happy with the conversion, right? So even the gentleman who converted in December is very happy with the conversion, and he sees the difference, in the kind of customer profile, as well as the conversations with the customers, bill values there, and all of that, right? So I think that's something that's likely to happen.
Sure.
So I feel that that's a huge opportunity in terms of conversion. I feel particularly now, especially people who have the right infrastructure would be able to shift to a branded environment. They would feel a little insecure to work and operate alone, and I feel that syndrome would come on. So people would have to be part of a branded where you are much more connected, much more in that. That's one. Second, I think I always felt that as we are moving up the ladder, the customer acquisition cycles would become very difficult for independent operators. It will be much more expensive to acquire a new customer and retain that customer. So the whole cycle would become and third, I feel that a lot of economies of scale would start flowing in, and I feel that different clarity of target groups would be more defined. I mean, you learn from what happened in Japan after the Second World War. There was people asked for a very high quality of service, but they didn't ask for fancy stores or fancy things. So people became very conscious about that the money they want to spend is for the product or the service they want. They don't want to spend money on the chandeliers you put in the store and things of that sort.
Absolutely.
So it's a very realistic and minimalistic way of looking at the business. So I see salons being more lighter, straightforward, clean, been offering great service to consumers, and customer getting the full value of what dollar they are spending. They are not spending for the marbles you put on the floor or the chandeliers you put on that thing. So a lot of that shift, I think India would start seeing it. We've seen our indulgence. We'll come down to our realistic expectation on what as a customer wants. And that's something which a responsible organizations like yours would lead in the front. And I think you being a Unilever pedigree and being responsible by environment, social and other responsibilities, I think there would be an opportunity to. I see a lot of consolidation happening, and which should be encouraged by players like you. I mean, while you would have to take a strategic call, but I think there should be a 3 level of tiers of activation. One at the bottom where I think these smaller independent operators would need some help. Maybe not complete business format franchising, maybe powered by a kind of thing. So I remember old days where Unilever started, these kirana shops being modernized, which now JioMart is trying to do. So this was way back. This was started 15, 16 years back by Unilever to convert some of them and kind of priority centers where they would have uplift the experience, consumer experience, and so on and so forth. So I think there are opportunities which are all there, and there is a wide customer group which can be done.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Gaurav. If you look at it from an industry point of view, clearly that opportunity is there. There is an opportunity to, create a more sort of, expertise, not expertise, I would just say a more acceptable standard at the, at a lower tier, where the standards of safety, hygiene, expertise are at that level of, consistency that the consumer is willing to pay a slight premium for. I am not sure about us playing that with the Lakme brand, because, in doing that, you cannot dilute, what Lakme stands for, your employees, as well as what it stands for your consumer. But there is an opportunity for that kind of play. When we look at conversion from a Lakme salon perspective, we make no difference in the screening process that we follow for a new partner to come on board or a new location to come on board versus a conversion, right? So we have a CRISIL evaluation of the franchisee partner, which this one has to go through. There is an interview. So we almost take this like a mid-career recruitment, right? So our regional business head interviews the prospective franchisee partner. So that again happens. Obviously, the locational, issues, that it does not sort of conflict with an existing sort of, consumer catchment, and a existing operating salon has to be taken care of. And then, of course, with all the ticks on the boxes, we go ahead. So because after the conversion, that salon has to operate, and that team has to operate as a Lakme salon, right? So therefore, the experience, the level of expertise, things like consumer safety, and all of them have to be at the highest standard. So that's our view on conversion.
Okay. That's great. That's an exhaustive franchise evaluation process. So on that, I would like to ask you something. You're one of the credible franchisors in India, who've had longer relationships with franchisees, and there's such stringent franchise evaluation process. What do you feel can be or should be the franchise practices or best practices in franchising, that people should follow, both from a franchisor as well as a franchisee perspective?
See, I think first, from a franchisor's perspective, you should not franchise for capital, and you should not franchise for fueling expansion, right? If there is any risk in your business model, you should first do it on your own equity, right? So unless your business model is completely de-risked, right, and it can be sort of, very process driven, and, you can sort of write a manual on how to execute it, you should not venture into franchising, right? It is not sort of an easy game that you play with other people's money, right? So I think first we should be really clear about the intent behind franchising, right? If you, and I said what you shouldn't do, let me say what you should do. Once you know that you have a great, customer journey, you're creating value for your customer and the people who work in that unit. And you know that by scaling it up, you will take that proposition to more people. That is, and sorry, you also have unit economics there, then that is the right time to franchise. Before you set out on that journey, you clearly need to have, very stringent, processes on what you can do and what you cannot do. Make sure that they are tested practically, and then you sort of, go down that path. But, and at any stage, and that's my personal view, at any stage, you should not make an ROI promise to the franchise, right? because a lot of the success at the unit level depends on the entrepreneurship that particular individual brings to the table, right? And I've already spoken about what I mean by entrepreneurship relevant to this business, right? It might be different for a QSR business, and it might be different for, let's say, a product business. But you need to get that absolutely clear, right? And go really slow. Start with 2 or 3, right? Because you will learn a lot in that, and then sort of think about scaling it up. Because otherwise, you'll just multiply the problems, and you will forget what you had started out with in the first place, and that will weaken the consumer proposition completely. Right? It is not everybody's game, and you don't need to play this game, right? So if you're doing this just to fuel expansion, there are various sources of fueling expansion, and there are various sources to capital, right? So you don't necessarily need to do this unless you genuinely want to bring entrepreneurship to the table. Right?
Absolutely, very well said. And I think this is very important. Franchising is responsible raising money. So you're responsible because you're bringing in another entrepreneur who also have financial goals and so on and so forth. So I think evaluating both sides, that there is compatibility, and then only I think decision what needs to be done. And another thing which you said is absolutely right, and this is what we continue to advise these younger companies, is what I call the mastering what matters, which means that unless and until you mastered your own business well enough that you can transfer that to now somebody else, it will never work. And you're right, absolutely. A lot of young people, just because they had some early success, they venture out into franchising, and franchising looks to them a much faster way of expansion and getting capital for them. And I also advise that these companies should really learn from your organization, because there would be difficult times. There would be a lot of times which are challenging. You will probably have a wrong selection of sites. You will have, because a lot of permutation works in a success. It can be entrepreneurial commitment, it can be a location which you selected, and further the team you select. So it can go wrong anyway. You can have any permutation. So by the time you go to a full cycle of understanding what would exactly work, and you have courage to start saying no and say this would not work and I don't go with it and we don't approve that, this doesn't happen. And as it becomes even more difficult as you come to the size of what you are already with a 400 plus kind of a network, where your expectation changes, cultural changes. The salon which was running but like 15 years now has a very different demographics, different culture, different people, teams, and what you want to do for the current consumer is very different. So how do you bridge that? And this is one of my questions to you, that today for companies of your size, which are running into 2-decade kind of a structure now, how do you bring that change cycle? What is a change cycle? How do you really, on one side, continue to uplift your older salons to come down to be ready for the future entire thing? And how do you forecast how the next futuristic consumer is coming from? And particularly for Lakmé viewpoint, where do you see your biggest TG now moving in? And what is the age group you now focus to design your business model on?
So number one, right? I think the salon might be old, right? Or let's say the site might be old, but even the look and feel of that salon has been refreshed. And most importantly, we take enough care that the mindsets are refreshed regularly, right? In this business, because the consumer is moving faster, younger consumers coming into the salon, it is really important that we start thinking close to the consumer. And when I say we, it doesn't mean people who sit in, our office in Bombay, but the people at the front end, our salon teams, our operations teams, our business partners, most of all. And I must say, it's not such a big deal, because I think many of them are really proud to be part of the beauty industry, right? Some of them, they were doing something which, I mean, very cheekily, I'm saying, as boring as banking or, IT services or stuff like that. And they've always been looking from the sidelines on this exciting beauty and glamour industry and wanting a way in. And Lakmé has given them that route in. Having come in there, they're on top of trends. They read a lot, right? We, provide a lot of that kind of exposure. Fashion Week happens twice a year, right? So I think it's about mindsets, and we ensure that mindsets are not old. And I will give you one of our oldest partners. He's a chartered accountant in the northern part of India. And he set up this business because he felt that, I want a business which, if God forbid something was to happen to me, my wife can run, right? And he set up this business with this, sort of small intention in mind. Today he runs 12 outlets, and he kind of reports to his wife, if you were to look at it that way, right? Amongst lots of other things that he does, and he's had lots of success, but in this business, he reports to his wife, and he's really involved. And I really love and respect his involvement, right? Even on the 31st of March, when you can imagine how busy a successful chartered accountant will be, if we call for a Lakme discussion, he will drop it and he will be available for it, right? Obviously, we are responsible and we are mindful of his time, but I'm just giving you that as an example. Now, this gentleman, when he saw that, social media is taking off and, what we were trying to do at Lakme, he put in disproportionate focus on, what he was, he had engaged a team to, sort of work on his social media handles. He realized that, he might have limitations. So he asked his son to handle that piece. And you can see that the whole experience for the consumer is 10x higher than what it would have been otherwise. Right. So what I'm trying to tell you, Gaurav, is that, the salon location might be old, but everything starting from the look and feel in the salon, the service product portfolio, because we have about 20% contribution from innovation. So services launched in the year contribute to 20%, right? The skill set of the experts and of course the mindset of everybody associated with that business. We have to ensure that that is on top of trends and in line with the time, right? So we don't really have an issue about old and young at all, right? I think there can be another issue that comes in, and that can come in basically not because of any malice on either side, but I think it can come in from lack of alignment or lack of understanding of expectations on both sides, right? So it is extremely important right in the beginning to clarify expectations, right? Like for example, we would like to control operations in that salon, right? I mean, there are other brands, and I'm not only talking salons, who would basically say that, this is my brand name, this is how the brand name has to be presented, and this is what you have to do and go ahead with life, right? We are not like that. We make no difference between how a company-owned salon is monitored and how a franchisee-owned salon is monitored, right? And we make that very clear to the franchisee partner or the potential at the time of his first interview with the company, right? And in fact, I tell our team that you should use the word that we are control freaks at least 4 times during that discussion, right? Because even if we aren't, it is better that he's expecting that. So he doesn't turn around and say, why do you want to know this, right? Because we are very clear about certain things, and it's very important to be transparent and have expectations aligned, because then you know what animal you are dealing with on both sides.
Absolutely. I think you're lucky to have these kind of franchisees who are ready to evolve and change and contribute. But I've seen in some of the organizations where expectations maybe are not aligned. Even if your franchisee has made 10 years money on the same outlet and go and tell him that, look, please change your signage, doesn't work. That he will come and say, why don't the company invest on that? So the expectation becomes, even for their own business, they don't want to invest sometimes. But it's all about selection and setting the expectations at both ends right. And also, I think honest delivery. You don't over commit yourself, but if you're honest about your approach to franchisees, I think they stay with them and they then start respecting that relationship and partnership.
That's it.
And we certainly like to interview this chartered accountant franchisee and set him an example, because we always the time talk about the brands, and we should really take at Franchise India, we should talk about this franchisee. So give us his reference, and our team would reach out and do his interview, that what it takes to become a serial franchise owner. So he's now become a 12 franchisee. That's also very good, because I would say that this India needs now that. India needs some early franchisees who get adaptable, understand the business, and then build a chain around the same brand. And this is how Burger King grew. This is how Dunkin' Donut grew. This is how how American motel industry was owned by Patels, because they used to buy one and then buy another and buy another. And a lot of your franchisees would do that. I feel that this is now going to be the next very strong strategy for companies to look at people who have that multiplication effect, and they can build territories and they can build multiple stores.
Yeah. Also, for great talent, they want to leverage it over a larger business size, right? So it doesn't make sense for, people of that profile to come in and run smaller enterprises. So we have to sort of, increase the value that they work with. So we have got several such franchisees who come in and get their hands dirty and then scale up. Because then it becomes like, a large professional setup for many of them. And in fact, you have met this franchisee. He has a policy whenever we get an award, right? Because it's a franchisee driven and a franchisee run business. We make sure that our franchisees go and collect the award. So last time when we got the Salon Congress national chain award. When it was in Delhi, this gentleman came and collected it. Last year, when you did the show in Bangalore, one of our Bangalore business partners, who happens to be a medical professional, came in and collected the award. So you've met a lot of our successful friends.
Yeah, sure. I've met a lot of them, and I know that they've been sending a lot of messages to me that you are having Pushkaraj coming on your forum. So some of them, some industry colleagues also have sent me, some CEOs have sent me their group chats. I think there was sending me that he's coming, and we all looking forward. So they're all watching live on Facebook your conversation, because a lot of them would like to follow what you're doing, and then they would adapt in their businesses. It's also good that it's a very collaborative industry. The competition is there, but competition also understands and learn from each other.
Yeah.
Ashita, questions from you, and we've already running.
Yeah, so we are actually losing on time, but I would still, extend it for a couple of minutes and wanted to know, Pushkar, we all know that you've been, you're very diligent, you're very committed, and the way you talk, it looks completely how compassionate you are about the work that you do. But I really want to know who Pushkar is at his personal side, and what did you do last 60 days?
An architect to a salon company leadership. So this must be really glamour, which architecture was not. And
Well, I mean, I think fundamentally architecture is a course that prepares you for a career in marketing, because what you do at a very fundamental level is to understand the consumer, understand what kind of needs that consumer has or is likely to have, and then sort of, with a bunch of technicians put a product together that will delight that consumer for life, right? And that's what we do in marketing. Now, you may put a soap together, you may put a beauty services experience together, you may put a phone together, whatever it is. But fundamentally, architecture equips you, I think, really well for consumer-driven business. So I think, in my defense, I will say that I sort of saw that coming a little early. It also helps you design salons and keep costs in salons quite efficient, and not spend on chandeliers, but just spend where there is a contact with the consumer. So I think that I would just say, what I've been doing for last 60 days, I think the first most important thing is that we've rallied together really well as a team within the Lakmé Salon team. And the number of conversations that we have had over the last 60 days is probably higher than what we have done in all of 2019 together. So we start every morning at 9 a.m. with an update call, where even if there's nothing to update, we just sort of exchange containment zones near us or something like that, and obviously some good comes out of it. And contact with the team has been really something that we are proud of, right? So the number of training hours that we've done close to 5 lakh hours of training for 5,000 people across these 8 weeks, right? And if you look at the number of hours that we had done in the previous year, we had that tech platform, but nobody would use it, right? And I had to keep sending nasty mails to people saying that you have only 10% usage, you have only 12% usage, but now it's gone all through, right? And it's happened as a larger trend, but I think in our business it's a little difficult to get people where they think that training has to be touch and feel, and it has to be in classroom or in an academy. So we've been really busy with various aspects of the business and how to sort of put those things together. Then of course it's given you a little more time at home to understand what your daughter's skills in art can be shaped into, or writing can be shaped into. My daughter's in the 10th standard, so she has her own sort of workload and all that taking her time. So we wake up in the morning, all three of us occupy 3 different rooms. One room is the Lakmé Lever office, one is HDFC Bank where my wife works, and one is Bombay Scottish School where my daughter studies. So, and then we sort of come together at different allotted times. So my wife knows how to cook in the family. So she comes in like 12ish and gets her stuff done. We all eat together, and then stay back and do the dishes and go back to office again. Right? So new skills have been sort of assimilated during this time.